Random assignment. Researchers must also watch out for differences in the makeup of the experimental and control groups, since those differences may also confound a study's results. In a therapy study, for example, the experimenter may unintentionally put wealthier participants in the experimental group and poorer ones in the control group. This difference, rather than their therapy, may be the cause of the greater improvement later found among the experimental participants. To reduce the effects of pre-existing differences, experimenters typically use random assignment. This is the general term for any selection procedure that ensures that every participant in the experiment is as likely to be placed in one group as the other. Researchers might, for example, select people by flipping a coin or picking names out of a hat. Media speak. Flawed study, gigantic impact. By David DeSalvo, Forbes, May 19, 2012. In 2001, Dr. Robert L. Spitzer, psychiatrist and professor emeritus of Columbia University, presented a paper at a meeting of the American Psychiatric Association about something called reparative therapy, also known as conversion therapy, for gay men and women. By undergoing reparative therapy, the paper claimed, gay men and women could change their sexual orientation. Spitzer had interviewed 200 allegedly former homosexual men and women that he claimed had shown varying degrees of such change. All of the participants provided Spitzer with self-reports of their experience with the therapy. Spitzer, now 79 years old, was no stranger to the controversy surrounding his chosen subject. 30 years earlier, he had played a leading role in removing homosexuality from the list of mental disorders in the association's diagnostic manual. Clearly, his interest in the topic was more than a passing academic curiosity. Fast forward to 2012, and Spitzer is of quite a different mind. Last month he told a reporter with the American Prospect that he regretted the 2001 study and the effect it had on the gay community, and that he owed the community an apology. And this month he sent a letter to the Archives of Sexual Behavior, which published his work in 2003, asking that the journal retract his paper. Spitzer's mission to clean the slate is commendable, but the effects of his work have been coursing through the homosexual community like acid since it made headlines a decade ago. His study was seized upon by anti-homosexual activists and therapists who held up Spitzer's paper as proof that they could cure patients of their sexual orientation. Spitzer didn't invent reparative therapy, and he isn't the only researcher to have conducted studies claiming that it works, but as an influential psychiatrist from a prestigious university, his words carried a lot of weight. In his recantation of the study, he says that it contained at least 2 fatal flaws. The self-reports from those he surveyed were not verifiable, and he didn't include a control group of men and women who didn't undergo the therapy for comparison. Self-reports are notoriously unreliable. Lacking a control group is a fundamental no-no in social science research across the board. The conclusion is inescapable: Spitzer's study was simply bad science. Reading the study now, I'm sure Spitzer is embarrassed by its flaws. Not only did he rely on self-reports, but he conducted the participant interviews by phone, which escalates unreliability to the doesn't pass the laugh test level. By phone, researchers aren't able to evaluate essential nonverbal cues that might cast doubts on verbal responses. Phone interviews, along with written interviews, carry too much guesswork baggage to be valuable in a scientific study, and Spitzer certainly knew that. The object lesson worth drawing from this story is that just one instance of bad science given the blessing of recognized experts can lead to years of damaging lies that snowball out of control. Spitzer cannot be held solely responsible for what happened after his paper was published, but he'd probably agree now that the study should never have been presented in the first place. At the very least, his example may help prevent future episodes of the same.